Deep within the lush jungles of Lubang Island in the Philippines, a lone Japanese soldier continued to wage a solitary war. The year was 1974. Yet, for Hiroo Onoda, the war was far from over. This is the incredible true story of Hiroo Onoda, a man who spent 30 years in the jungle. It is a tale of unwavering loyalty, extraordinary resilience, and the enduring power of belief. Join us as we delve into the remarkable life of Hiroo Onoda, the soldier who refused to surrender. Hiroo Onoda was born in 1922 in the village of Kamikawa, Japan. He grew up in a time when Japan was undergoing significant social and political change, marked by rising nationalism and militarism. Like many young men of his generation, Onoda was instilled with a deep sense of patriotism and loyalty to the emperor. At the age of 20, Onoda enlisted in the Imperial Japanese Army. He received rigorous training in guerrilla warfare and intelligence gathering at the Nakano School, a prestigious military academy. Onoda excelled in his training, displaying a keen mind, physical endurance, and an unwavering determination to serve his country. Little did he know that these skills would be put to the ultimate test in the crucible of war. Onoda's path would lead him to a remote island in the Philippines, where he would face an extraordinary ordeal that would forever shape his destiny and etch his name into the annals of history. In December 1944, as the tide of World War II turned decisively against Japan, Lieutenant Hiroo Onoda was dispatched to Lubang Island in the Philippines. His mission was clear: to engage in guerrilla warfare against the advancing American and Filipino forces. He was to disrupt enemy supply lines, gather intelligence, and hold the island at all costs. Onoda and his small band of soldiers were essentially abandoned on Lubang, instructed to never surrender and to fight to the death. They were told that reinforcements would eventually arrive, but that help never came. As the war in the Pacific raged on, Onoda and his men retreated into the dense jungles of Lubang, determined to carry out their orders. They lived off the land, surviving on a meager diet of fruits, berries, and whatever animals they could hunt. The jungle became their sanctuary, their battlefield, and ultimately, their prison. They conducted raids on enemy patrols, sabotaged infrastructure, and lived in a constant state of alert, expecting an enemy attack at any moment. Onoda, with his unwavering sense of duty and remarkable survival skills, emerged as the leader of this isolated band of soldiers. Life on Lubang Island was a constant struggle for survival. The jungle, while providing cover from the enemy, was also a harsh and unforgiving environment. Food was scarce, water was often contaminated, and tropical diseases were rampant. Onoda and his men lived in constant fear of discovery, moving from camp to camp, always on the lookout for signs of the enemy. They became masters of camouflage, blending seamlessly into the jungle foliage. They learned to identify edible plants, trap animals, and conserve their meager supplies. Onoda's training in guerrilla warfare proved invaluable. He taught his men how to build shelters, set traps, and navigate the dense jungle using the stars. Despite the hardships, Onoda never wavered in his belief that the war was still ongoing. He clung to every rumor, every scrap of propaganda that hinted at a continued Japanese resistance. He dismissed leaflets dropped by Filipino forces, announcing Japan's surrender as enemy tricks. Onoda's unwavering faith in his country and his mission fueled his determination to survive. Section 5. The war ends, but not for Onoda. The year was 1945. The world had celebrated the end of World War II, but on Lubang Island, the war continued for Hiroo Onoda and his remaining comrades. News of Japan's surrender and Emperor Hirohito's radio address renouncing war were slow to reach the remote corners of the Pacific. Even when leaflets were airdropped over the island proclaiming the war's end, Onoda and his men dismissed them as Allied propaganda. They reasoned that the enemy would use any means necessary to trick them into surrendering. They clung to the belief that their prolonged resistance was part of a larger, strategic plan. Onoda's conviction was further strengthened by occasional encounters with local police or hunters, which he interpreted as evidence of ongoing hostilities. These encounters, often ending in gunfire, only solidified his belief that the war was far from over. As the years turned into decades, Onoda's world shrank to the confines of the jungle. Time seemed to stand still as he continued his solitary war, a lone soldier against an invisible enemy. Section 6. Voices from the Outside. Attempts to reach Onoda. As the years passed and the world moved on from World War II, the story of the Japanese holdouts on Lubang Island began to circulate. The Japanese government, realizing that some soldiers might still be in hiding, made several attempts to locate and bring them home. Search parties were sent to the island. Family members recorded messages urging them to surrender, and leaflets were airdropped with news of the outside world. However, Onoda and his comrades remained elusive, their skepticism deeply ingrained. They interpreted any attempt at contact as a ruse, a trap laid by the enemy. The dense jungle terrain and their expert survival skills made them almost impossible to find. Despite the efforts, Onoda remained lost in time, a prisoner of his own unwavering belief. Section 7. The Turning Point. A message from Onoda's brother. In 1972, a glimmer of hope emerged. A young Japanese adventurer named Norio Suzuki embarked on a personal quest to find Onoda and other rumored Japanese holdouts. Suzuki's journey captured the imagination of the Japanese public, and his eventual encounter with Onoda made headlines around the world. Suzuki befriended Onoda, but even he could not convince the aging soldier that the war was over. Onoda insisted on seeing orders from a superior officer, specifically Major Yoshimi Taniguchi, his former commander, before he would even consider surrendering. Recognizing the depth of Onoda's conviction, Suzuki returned to Japan with a photograph of himself and Onoda as proof of their encounter. The Japanese government located Major Taniguchi, who had since retired and was working as a bookseller. Taniguchi flew to Lubang Island and met with Onoda, fulfilling the promise made decades earlier. In a highly emotional encounter, Taniguchi informed Onoda that the war was indeed over and ordered him to lay down his arms. Section 8. Surrender and Return. A Hero's Welcome Home. On March 9, 1974, after nearly 30 years in hiding, Hiroo Onoda emerged from the jungle. He was 52 years old. He wore his tattered and faded army uniform, his Arisaka Type 99 rifle still in hand, though inoperable. He carried his sword, his remaining ammunition, and the Japanese flag he had carefully preserved for 3 decades. Onoda surrendered to the Philippine authorities in a formal ceremony, handing over his sword and rifle. He was greeted with a mixture of awe, disbelief, and compassion. The world watched in amazement as this ghost from the past stepped back into the present. Upon his return to Japan, Onoda received a hero's welcome. He was hailed as a symbol of national pride and resilience. His story capturing the imagination of a nation still grappling with the aftermath of war. However, Onoda's return was not without its complexities. He struggled to adapt to a Japan vastly different from the one he had left behind. Section 9. Adjusting to a New World. Life after the jungle. Returning to a world transformed by decades of peace and progress proved to be a jarring experience for Onoda. Japan, once a nation driven by militarism and emperor worship, had embraced democracy and economic prosperity. The bustling cities, modern technology, and changing social values were overwhelming for a man who had spent 3 decades living in a time capsule of his own making. Onoda was met with a mixture of admiration and bewilderment. While many saw him as a war hero, others questioned his actions and his inability to accept the war's end. He struggled to reconcile the Japan he knew with the unfamiliar landscape he encountered. The values he had fought for, loyalty, obedience, and self-sacrifice, seemed out of place in a society that now prioritized individualism and material success. Despite the challenges, Onoda attempted to build a new life for himself. He married, bought a ranch, and even became involved in youth education, sharing his story of survival and the importance of perseverance. Onoda's legacy, a story of perseverance and the human spirit. Hiroo. Onoda's story continues to fascinate and resonate with people around the world. It is a testament to the enduring power of the human spirit and the resilience of the human will. Onoda's unwavering loyalty and his incredible ability to survive against all odds offer valuable insights into the human condition.